Alright, I've brought this project far long enough that we should be able to get to construction drawings pretty quickly after this review. I already had most of this front end put together from when we built the garage over here, and that was just the county overlay and the Google overlay. But looking it up close, this is about the size of your existing deck right now, that thing here. And this was a start of where we can build this thing. And this south wall is dictated by the window well. And then over here, I just looked at a couple different, well, first of all, 12 foot deep was the depth of the existing deck. And we later talked, and 14 was probably going to work as well or better. But then side to side, this was, I believe, the first idea that you guys had, this 13 foot wide basically. And then we decided to capture the corner of this bay window. And then I pulled it back to 12 for a little while here for the beginning. And there's the existing deck, which is about 230, I believe. But so when we start thinking about putting a deck over here, probably have to be at least this large here. And we'll get to that window well in a second. There's the existing deck. And so this one here is 206 feet, and this one's about 230, as I recall, 236. We turn that around. That's that same deck, and we shift it down. You could see that this one's actually smaller than that one, which, 206 to 230. But then there's probably a question of whether we should just bring that over, and I think you should just bring that over here. Otherwise, this just becomes kind of a lost area. This becomes a little more streamlined. And that's 250 feet at the 12 foot depth. But remember, in this area here, it's only going to be like 9 feet deep or so. And so after I talked with Glenn, I began to work with the 14 foot depth instead of the 12 foot depth. And that's what this is, with these kind of roughed out. Now, I was trying to keep some of these brick area to coursing dimensions. Here we have a brick and a half, etc. that way, but we can't really determine that until we know exactly which manufacturer of windows, which window manufacturer we're going to use. And there are only several of these that I've been able to find so far that make both the windows and the doors with shading between the glass, shading or blinds between the glass. But you may find some others, and I'll be happy to figure out which of their models will work in the plan. So for starting this plan, we had a 6 foot slider over here, which is typical, and then these are sliding windows, left sliding and right sliding, and this is a left or right, whichever you like. And most of these manufacturers, only one of these sash moves. There are some manufacturers where they both can slide either way, but most of them it's just one way or the other. And then this last one down here is a casement unit, since that's not going to get in anybody's path opening there. One of the manufacturers I found, really the only one so far, I found that makes sliding windows and puts shading between the glass, is Andersen. So I have worked with Andersen model numbers and sizes through most of this plan. Pella Windows does make all of these, except they make a sliding unit, but they don't put shading between the glass of their sliding units. Now you may want to look at various showrooms. Marvin also does not put shades between any of their units, so just don't bother with Marvin. But Pella does on all their units except for these gliding windows, and so that means, because double hungs is just plain wrong for the structure, you would be into either double casements, or they make a double casement that's called a push-out casement. I haven't seen these in operation, but I believe they just part in the middle and you push them out and you have the entire width of that open, and the screen's on the interior. But for the purposes of this, I think Andersen is probably going to be one of the ones, possibly the only one you'll be able to find to fulfill all the requirements. So that's what I used, was Andersen models, and these are available from Reckworth at least. And then when I was looking at this 14 foot depth, this is the truss spacing here. These red rectangles as trusses at 2 foot on center, and because that one's kind of, it's nice if this just comes up on the inside of your framing, this last truss. So, and I just went ahead and moved it the other 9 or 10 inches so that these trusses lay out better like this. And one of the reasons I did that is because the building code is going to require at least a certain width of wall on these walls over. This one's not a problem with this big 3 foot or 2.5 foot sections on each side. And the end wall is not a problem because we're going to be able to get enough there. But this wall in particular, we needed a little bit more length to be able to get the required wind bracing panels, what are called wind bracing panels, which we can get here and here. And that's what all we need on a wall that length is 2 of them. So that was another reason to go ahead and push it all the way to 1410. This deck is actually going to be larger than 250 feet with that at 1410. So yes, this whole deck, when it stretches over to the building behind the existing garden, which I think that's about 4 feet, and I think I have it about right this way too. But as shown, this is 290 square feet, and that's going to take about 640 lineal feet. And I priced this different things so you would know. This is a composite, one of their lower priced composites, I assume, but that is about $1.99 a lineal foot after their little rebate. And this, after the little rebate, is about 97 cents a foot. And so the difference is, you know, $1,400 for one of these and a little under $700 for this over all of it. So, and that's about, you know, obviously a $700 difference. But there would be no maintenance with this. And then this next series just runs through some of the different variations, some of the things I encountered while I was working with the plan. This is the existing structure with the garden, and that was a little 12-foot deck, and we were only talking about bringing the room 12 feet deep. And in terms of this window well, if you still want to get light down there, you could either have someone make you an iron grate to go over here that can support weight, or there is this product apparently available that's tough enough that you could have that mounted as I'm showing it down here flush with the deck, and then that you can actually have furniture on top of it. But you just have to decide that. You can obviously come right over it with decking, but then you would lose any light or ventilation in that basement. And so this is the 12 foot deep, and this is the least expensive. It has a flat ceiling inside. This is just a hip roof. It's actually a truss system over this. So that would be the least expensive with those windows that I had talked about. And then this brings that same, still less expensive than any kind of a vaulted ceiling structure, still a truss ceilings, but coming to the 14 feet deep. And then we adjust the windows for that 14 foot depth and width, shift that door a little bit. The further we shift that door, this is going to become kind of a little dead area here. Eventually we're going to bring the downspout right into this corner though, this downspout here, and we're just going to use this existing one for all of this over here. And then this was the hip roof, and then if we go up to a gable kind of thing like what's out front, it's more like that with the wall flashing, etc. And then that was the 12 foot deep with the gable, and this is the 14 foot deep. And that is indeed the 14 foot 10 deep, because there's the 14 and 12 is all the way back there. So that's 12 and 14, and we get that last 10-inch push to 14 foot 10. And then wood floor. And then from inside, it's something like these. This is kind of gives you a representation of that. This was that one with the flat ceiling, which I know we're not really going to do, but that was the least expensive option. And coming around here, and I'm showing Cromwell because it's flat. This, you would have to use a mud-in J channel here. Rich will know about this, or the drywall person will. And then this becomes a caulk joint here. And that is stepping down 4 3/4 to the concrete slab, and by the time you get your floor covering on, it's going to be closer to 4 inches down from this. Really want it to, so that the floor covering, whatever the floor covering is going to be, it goes right underneath this sill here. And then these, look at some of this stuff from this end. This was that flat ceilinged one, and this is where we go to the vaulted ceiling, and these are scissor trusses, 412 pitch under, a 612 pitch on top. And from this angle here, you would have some sort of little trim board, I guess, around all of this, because it looks pretty blank without it. Certainly it improves this from this end here, bringing this all together through here. This is a more finished photo of the same thing, but it gets some glare. Now there are variations on these end windows. What I'm showing here, and I'm not positive it's going to be available from the manufacturer, but I believe these are 3.5 feet and this is a 4 feet. It might be that these are only available in 3 feet wide, with the blinds between them. That may be 3 feet showing, but I know this is 4, and so I think these are 3'6". And this was just different things you can do at this end. Really, there's none of these circle top action on the rest of your house. There is this sort of broken arch happening here and there. And I show this as a big picture window, but that can also be either left sliding or right sliding. If you're crazy about symmetry, though, it's not going to be symmetrical as far as that goes. And actually, I think I like this better. I like this better than that. Not that you're going to do either of those. This really is just showing you that because this is still going to be down 11 inches, we bring this decking all the way across. Recommend a little nice deep 16-inch deep stair here, and you just have 2 little risers into this room. Even though you don't use it, that would be code violation to leave it like that. Taking a look at these models from the outside, from the ground, then the existing house, and then that is the and I really kind of like this little small minimalist situation, but I don't think 12 feet deep is enough for you, and plus I think you definitely wanted the vaulted ceiling. The roof wouldn't be like this. We don't need this unnecessary valley, so the roof is going to be like that on that bay. Just get rid of that last thing and have it go over. And then these are just some variations on those windows shown from out here. From this angle here, with just some things I just put together. On this here, this is a 10-foot slider, and not everyone is going to make that, and in particular Anderson only gets to about 8 foot wide on their triple sliding, where this is a big picture unit in the middle and these 2 sashes move. But that is from a different manufacturer who makes them up to, I think this was from Marvin, they make them 10 feet wide. So it's going to come down to these window manufacturers, some of this. Notice on here though, because, and we'll go back here real quick, at the interior of this room, the doors are going to be a certain height, and the top of that door and where that door casing is going to dictate where the top of these other casings are. Those should all be aligned. But because when we go outside, when we get here, there's this fascia that goes around here that's 7.5 inches. And these doors, once you step down into that room, they're not going to come up. So you have to use metal expander at the top of the doors. And I'm showing doing the same thing with the windows, but it's not really necessary on this end. You could just have those windows finish a brick course or so lower. But that's what I did. But on this last one then, when I was over here, you can see I ran this soldier course just like you have here. I ran this soldier course of brick all the way around and didn't put the expander at the top of the windows. But you can use whatever makes most sense for you as far as that goes. And then these end windows are just kind of experimenting. I didn't know if you wanted something that elaborate or not. But this runs you through some of the variations so far, and I'm sure that you'll be able to take it from there. And finally, this is just a elevation view of some of those issues that we talked about, where we were putting the wall and that was the flat ceiling structure there. And with the flat ceiling structure, it's about 8'4.5" finished. When we go to the scissor truss, you have 10'9" to the peak and 8'4.5". And this 8'4.5", I just did that because they can buy 8-foot studs, and then with the bottom plate and the 2 top plates, they end up with 8'4.5" and don't have to cut anything. They could make this a little taller if they wanted to, because they don't need this high of a heel. We're not going to insulate this structure at all, is my understanding. And then I just wanted to show you this. This these are 612 pitches here, and the ones up on top are 912, and so I've maintained this 612 pitch here. If you really wanted higher ceilings in that room, you could go to a 912 over 712, and that adds about 2 feet of height to the interior height. But I think that this actually works better from an aesthetic standpoint. So I didn't bother modeling this taller pitched one. If this isn't enough though, we can certainly do that. Another way to get a higher ceiling without altering this exterior pitches is to use stick framing, where these would be 2x6 rafters here, and then it'd probably take just a couple LVLs, a couple 14-inch LVLs, but you would have to have those LVLs penetrate this wall, and you have to open up that room inside to get bearing on that, and you would have to confirm that this is a big enough header, and I would do that and tell you what that header over this door needs to be. But then it becomes just where this is just the stick-built roof, where there's 2x6s and those come down. There's a beam at the center, and it would bear into that wall and then at the end wall. It's a little more complex than trusses, but if you want that higher pitch, that's the next. That would be the next step on that, and that may be what Rich was talking about, running a beam against this wall, but we really don't have the height to do that. So that's that, and I guess the last thing is there's a quick little rotation around one of these structures, and I will look forward to talking to you the next time I talk to you. Thanks very much. I remembered that I forgot to cover one additional item. Remember, with these sliding windows, we're only going to get half the ventilation through those. And if we wanted additional ventilation and or even more light in there, even more airy space, there are opportunities for skylights, either 1, 2, 3 of them in these slots here, which would be the most symmetrical with the door, I suppose, or a couple of them perhaps here and here, or here and here. And they have them now that it's just all automatic, solar powered, and those are also available shades. However, one of the reasons I wanted to mention them is this is a north slope, so you will never get any serious heat gain or glare, because it will never have the sun coming directly in it. So if that can be swung, that's a great idea. Wouldn't recommend putting them on both sides because of that glare. That said, though, you could have them as many as 6, or really as many as you wanted, depending on this truss spacing. But if you have them on this side, I would have some built-in shading just because of the south sun beating through those. But I did want to cover the possibility of skylights through there. Rich probably won't like me mentioning those, but it is a possibility. So, okay, that's definitely it this time. Thanks again.